Chapter 851. Both halves of Charles's body fell to the floor. Derek was shell-shocked as he watched Charles get sliced in two. He fell to the floor and began to tremble from head to toe. Sweat and urine pooled under his body. He never expected Dustin could be so ruthless. He'd killed the second son of the Kirin family without any hesitation. This bastard is the last one left. Should we kill him too? Cornelius pressed his blade to Derek's neck once again. Don't kill me. Show mercy, hero. Show mercy. Derek burst into tears of fright. He crawled over to Dustin on his knees, begging for his life in a frenzy. He was terrified. These people were insane and had no reservations. They dared to kill a big shot like Charles. What was he in comparison to that? Forget it. This has nothing to do with him. Let him live, Dustin said indifferently. Sir Rhys, the Kirin family has lost many of their members. They'll do a thorough investigation. If we don't tie up loose ends, and this person leaks information, there'll be consequences. Cornelius warned. No. I won't say anything. I don't know anything. I wasn't here today and never saw any of you. I swear on my family's name that I won't say anything if you let me go. If I do, you can annihilate my family. Derek begged mournfully, bowing his head and making promises. He desperately wanted to live. Don't worry, I won't kill you. But I need you to do something, Dustin said expressionlessly. I would do anything you want. Derek nodded profusely. Stab Charles's body a few times. Then bury all the corpses of the Kirin family members. Dustin instructed. What? Derek was stunned. It seemed that they wanted to drag him down with them too. What? You're not willing to? Cornelius' expression turned unkind. I am. Of course I'm willing. Derek nodded profusely again. Then, he picked up the blade on the ground and repeatedly drove it into Charles's corpse. He wanted to show his sincerity to them. General Derek Lester, right. I'll remember you. We'll have a good partnership from here on out, Dustin said casually. Then, he grabbed Gavin's head and got into the car. The engine roared to life, and the Kirin gang hurriedly left. Derek looked at the corpse lying everywhere. He wanted to cry. Fuck. What an unlucky day. Somehow he'd gotten himself into this disaster. It was nighttime. Tyler was holed up in one of the studies in the Grants mansion. He was focused entirely on planning tactics at his desk. Suddenly, a black silhouette slowly emerged from a corner. It was a woman in black wearing a mask with a raindrop pattern. Master, the situation has changed. Gavin's ambush failed. Now, his whereabouts are unknown. He is most likely in trouble, the woman reported quietly. Failed. Tyler narrowed his eyes. He can't even take down a small fry. That useless glutton deserved to die. Master, should we move on to the next step? She asked tentatively. That bastard carries the sin of killing Paul Hill. He will probably be dead in a week. We don't need to care about him for now. Tyler shook his head and continued, right now, the most important matter is obtaining the Harmon's treasure map. By the way, how is Trent's progress? There is discord within the Harmon family. However, it is difficult to get Trent promoted, the woman said. Since Trent can't do it alone, let's add fuel to the fire. We're going to turn the Harmon family upside down. Seeking Scary. Chapter 852. The night passed quickly. The following day, all the members of the Kirin gang were dressed in mourning suits. They stood at the entrance to the House of Heroes. The House of Heroes was where they kept the ashes of the Kirin gang members. All disciples who died in the line of duty were regarded as heroes. They would then be kept in the House of Heroes for others to visit. One reason was to cherish their memory. The other was to serve as a warning. The Kirin gang would care for the friends and family of those who make it to the House of Heroes. Their family would receive timely financial support to help with living costs. This way, the Kirin gang members wouldn't have to worry about their families if they pass away one day. Dustin stood at the entrance of the House of Heroes. He held two human heads dripping with blood and walked to the memorial plaque in the middle of the room. The words, "In memory of Nelson Horst, Guildmaster of the Flame Dragon Guild," were engraved on it. "Nelson, I've killed the people who harmed you. These are their heads. I brought them here to atone for their sins toward you." Dustin tossed Gavin's and Felix's heads. They rolled under Nelson's memorial plaque. "Rest assured that I'll do as I promised. From today onward, Haley is my daughter, and Cecilia is my sister. So long as I'm alive, I won't let them get hurt. You can rest in peace now." Dustin faced Nellen's urn and said a prayer. Then, he saluted it as a show of respect. "Salute!" Cornelius shouted from the door. The Kirin gang members saluted and showed their respect for the fallen heroes. Perhaps one day, they would also die in the line of duty and be placed in the House of Heroes. To be remembered and respected by the entire gang, they could die without regrets. "Dustin Rhys, get the hell out here." Suddenly, a high-pitched scream sounded. The door to the Zephyr Lodge was violently kicked down. A woman in braids wearing a black tracksuit barged in. She was leading a group of female soldiers. These female soldiers looked strong. From the sharp gazes, these female soldiers were not average. "You're gutsy. Who are you? How dare you barge into the Kirin gang?" Cornelius yelled angrily. "Enough bullshit. Ask Dustin to come out here and see me." The woman in braids was radiating murderous energy. She looked pissed. Upon hearing that, Dustin walked out of the House of Heroes and looked directly at her. "Tam Dustin Rhys. Do you have a message for me?" he asked indifferently. "You killed my brother. I'm going to kill you." The woman's gaze turned cold. Without another word, she unsheathed her sword and charged. Anyone who stood in her way was forced aside with her sharp blade. The audacity! Cornelius flew into a rage. He suddenly flickered in front of her, thrusting a palm out. A ferocious burst of internal energy exploded and crashed over her. The woman frowned. Suddenly, she leaped into the air and dodged this blow. At the same time, she spun expertly in the air and brought her sword down on Cornelius. Her attack was swift and accurate. Its power was shocking. "This is child's play." Cornelius snorted, reaching out and grabbing the air. A shadow palm suddenly materialized. It grabbed onto the woman's sharp blade. Then, the shadow palm yanked it down. The woman crashed onto the ground violently, like a fly that had been swatted. However, right before she touched the ground, she twisted her sword. The tip of her sword pressed into the ground, stopping her fall. The sword curved into an arc. Taking advantage of the rebound, she flew into the air once again. She aimed the sword at Cornelius' abdomen. "You're asking for death." Cornelius' expression darkened. He moved his hand downward. Then, a white beam of internal energy shot like a thunderbolt. Chapter 853. The woman's eyes widened. Knowing she was in trouble, she used her sword to block. The white beam hit the blade, forcing the woman backward. She almost tripped and fell. Blood dripped from her mouth. The hand that was gripping the sword was numb. She couldn't move. "Who are you? Why are you stopping me?" The woman frowned with a dark expression. She didn't know such a skilled martial artist would be hiding in this lowly Kirin gang. "I'll kill you for trying to assassinate our gang leader." Cornelius was about to attack again when Dustin stopped him. "Young lady, who are you? Why did you try to kill me when you got here? You killed my brother. I'm here to take revenge." The woman said indignantly. "Your brother? Are you from the Killian family?" Dustin's eyes flashed coldly. "The Killian family? My name is Horst, Nicky Horst." The woman shouted. "Nicky Horst? Then your brother must be." Dustin's eyebrows knitted. "My brother is Nelson Horst." Nicky's words shocked the audience. Cornelius was taken aback, then he looked confused. "So you're Sir Nelson's little sister. But why do you want to kill our gang leader?" Nelson had a deep respect for Dustin. Nicky should have shared the same feelings toward Dustin. So why did she try to kill him on sight? Dustin caused my brother to die. Of course, I want to kill him. Nikki gritted her teeth. Nonsense. The enemy was the one responsible for Sir Nelson's death. Our leader has avenged him. Did someone mislead you? Cornelius frowned. Misled. HMPH. If it wasn't for him, would my brother have died? Nikki said resentfully. I am indeed responsible for your brother's death. I didn't protect him, Dustin said sorrowfully. He'd always felt guilty over what happened to Nelson. You finally admit it. Since my brother died because of you, you can repay him with your life. Nikki screamed, angrily. She brandished her sword again and stabbed him. The attack was so sudden and quick. Cornelius was unprepared, so he didn't react in time. Of course, Dustin would be fine without his help anyway. Just as everyone thought Dustin would retaliate against Nikki's attack, the sharp blade pierced Dustin's abdomen. Blood dripped down the blade. Cornelius and the entire gang were stunned. Even Nikki was dumbfounded. No one expected Dustin to take that blow. Why didn't you dodge? Nikki was stunned. Even if Dustin wasn't as strong as her, he should at least try, right? Yet, the man before her stood still and let her stab him like he was asking for death. It was indeed unexpected. I am to blame for Nelson's death. I am willing to take this sword, Dustin said. He stood there quietly without protest. Are you not afraid you'd die? Nikki frowned. If you wanted to kill me, you would have aimed for my heart, not my stomach. Dustin shook his head. Although Nikki had been hostile, she wasn't exuding much murderous intent. She was here to stand up for her brother. Nonsense. I just messed up my aim earlier. Nikki insisted. In that case, you can stab me again. Aim for the heart. Dustin pointed at his chest. You're insane. Nikki was so scared she took a few steps back. She felt exasperated. She'd never met someone like this before. He was simply a psycho. Chapter 854. If you don't stab me today, you won't get the chance again, Dustin reminded Nikki. As he spoke, he slowly pulled out the sword in his abdomen and tossed it back to her. HMPH. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I'm here to say goodbye to my brother, so I'll let you live to see another day. When I'm in a bad mood again, I'll come to end your life. Nikki elbowed past Dustin and stormed toward the House of Heroes. Sir Rhys, why didn't you dodge just now? That woman is horrible. What if you got hurt? Cornelius was very concerned. I owe her that. Dustin shook his head while looking serious. Every time he remembered Nelson's horrible death, he felt remorse and guilt. At least he felt slightly better after that stab. Sir Rhys, let's bandage your wound. Cornelius sighed softly. Then, he waved a disciple over and asked him to treat Dustin's injury. As the gang leader, Dustin was deeply caring and loyal. Of course, that was a good thing. But to become a hero and lead the Kirin gang to glory, these traits would become burdens instead. An hour later, Dustin was all bandaged up. He sat in the meeting room, waiting quietly. After a moment, Nikki entered the meeting room. Her eyes were red, and she'd been crying earlier. When she saw Dustin, she immediately wiped the tear tracks from the corner of her eyes and raised her head. Hey, just because I stabbed you earlier doesn't mean this is over. You'll never make it up to my brother. I know, Dustin said with a nod. He gestured to a chair and said, sit down and have some water. All right. Just as Nikki was about to sit, she suddenly jumped up. You think you can ask me to sit, and I'll listen? Do I even know you? In that case, you can talk while standing, Dustin said indifferently. HMPH. Well, I want to sit. Nikki sat down huffily, crossing her arms in front of her chest. She was trying to make it difficult for Dustin. Are the people who killed my brother dead? Nikki asked coldly. They're dead. Their heads are in the House of Heroes, Dustin answered honestly. HMPH, at least you have enough decency to take revenge for my brother. Nikki calmed down slightly. If Dustin said no, she would have stabbed him again. I can tell you're not an ordinary person. May I ask where you're stationed? Dustin asked carefully. Do you know the Jade Maiden Sisterhood of Oakvale? Nikki said while looking proud. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood. Dustin shook his head. I haven't heard of it. Are they powerful? Don't be stupid. Of course, we are. Nikki said with a glare. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood has over 10,000 disciples. We are on par with the Valley of Joy and the White Clouds. We are one of the 3 major women's guilds of Oakvale. I see. I guess I was unknowledgeable. Dustin raised his head slightly and continued, there must be another reason the Jade Maiden Sisterhood suddenly came to the southern province. How did you know? Nikki knitted her eyebrows while looking at Dustin suspiciously. She had come to Balerno with her master to search for the guild's missing treasure. When she found out about her brother's death, she rushed over. It was just a guess. Dustin took a sip from his cup. News of Nelson's death had only been released this morning. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood was based in Oakvale. If they had just received word today, there was no way they could reach here so quickly. Chapter 855. There was only one possibility. Nikki and her group must have arrived in the southern province much earlier. You guessed it right. I have come to Balerno for an important matter. Nikki didn't deny it and started to glance around the area. You have a nice, spacious place here. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood needs a place to stay for the time being. Do you mind if we stay here? We do have plenty of space. You can settle down here if you want. I'll have someone make arrangements, Dustin agreed readily. He wondered if guilt made him feel obligated to agree to all her requests. HMPH. Smart move. Nikki nodded in satisfaction and took out a red pill. She told him, here, this is Hemotrol. It not only helps you recover, but it also boosts your internal energy and cultivation. Since you got injured, it should help. Thanks. Dustin flashed her a weak smile. He could tell Nikki wasn't a bad person. No problem. Consider it payment for accommodations. Nikki then took out her phone and made some calls. After a while, a group of disciples from the Jade Maiden Sisterhood walked into Zephyr Lodge flamboyantly. A woman dressed in white was leading the sisterhood. She had beautiful features and a tall figure. However, she looked arrogant. This woman was the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's lead disciple, Brittany Cloud. A group of beautiful female disciples followed behind her. They carried themselves well. The Kirin gang members whispered among themselves as they looked at the disciples. Distastefully. Brittany, you're here. Nikki approached them when she saw Brittany walk in. This is the place you've found for us. Brittany strolled into the meeting room arrogantly. Her eyes swept around the room as if she owned the place. That's right. The scenery is beautiful here since it's surrounded by mountains and rivers. Madam Edith should like it here, Nikki replied. It's passable, I suppose. It barely meets our standards. Brittany nodded. Her gaze shifted to Dustin, and she frowned. Why is there a man here? Get him out. Brittany, he's the owner here, Nikki explained awkwardly. So what? Brittany held her head high. With a condescending look, she continued, on behalf of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood, I now claim your manor. Move out of here with your people immediately. We don't like staying with disgusting men. Move out. Dustin was taken aback. He wondered if he had heard her correctly. She had acted all high and mighty as soon as she walked in. She was also acting like she owned the place and drove him out. What the hell was going on? That's right, move out immediately. Brittany spoke matter-of-factly, you should be honored that we are claiming your land. What you need to do now is listen to our orders. Understand? Instead of responding to Brittany, Dustin turned to Nikki and asked, is there something wrong with her head? Nonsense. Nikki retorted Dustin with a frown. If that's not the case, why would she say something like that? Dustin was perplexed. You insolent bastard. How dare you? The Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples erupted in anger when they heard him. They were furious. You bastard. How dare you insult me? After a moment of shock, Brittany brandished her sword angrily. She screamed, I order you to apologize to me and leave. Otherwise, you will suffer the consequences. Chapter 856. Excuse me, miss. Please get your facts straight. This is my territory. I'm the one giving out orders here. Dustin pushed Brittany's sword away with a finger. He demanded stoically, you can only stay if I say so. If I don't allow it, then you need to leave. Understand? How dare you? You dare refuse us? Brittany glared at Dustin. I'm the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's lead disciple. I'm a goddess everyone looks up to. Do you know how many outstanding men line up to impress me every day? I'm giving you a chance. Don't be ungrateful. Because of her status, men fawned over her everywhere she went. Nobody dared to go against her will. I'm sorry, I'm not like your fanboys. I'm not interested in you at all. Please don't think so highly of yourself, Dustin responded impassively. You. Brittany seethed in anger. It was the first time a man was not fawning over her beauty. How dare he ignore her? Hey, I'm warning you. Nobody has ever rejected Brittany's request. You better not make her angry. That's right. We're disciples of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood. You will suffer severe consequences for defying us. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples protested in anger. They had gotten used to receiving special treatment. In the martial world, men would do the best to please them. Oh, I get it. It seemed like Brittany realized something. She flashed an icy smile. I've seen through your true intentions. You're playing hard to get, aren't you? Are you using reverse psychology to get my attention? HMPH. I've seen plenty of men like you. You say one thing on the surface, but you think of the opposite. You act all upright, but you're a lecher. I'll never fall for your tricks. An insignificant brat like you isn't worthy of my attention. We are worlds apart. No amount of tricks will ever change that. After all, an outstanding woman like me is far beyond your reach. But I must admit, you managed to get my attention. So I have decided to make an exception this time. I'm giving you a chance to please me. Keep in mind that I have never given anyone such a favor. When she finished, she lifted her head proudly like a dignified queen. Dustin was rendered speechless. He had only thought Brittany was confident. He didn't expect her to be an idiot either. He had rejected her clearly, but she somehow thought he was playing hard to get. I must have guessed right. The corner of Brittany's lips curved up into a smile. Ha! I knew it. You, men, are all like that with your scheming tricks. But you'll never trick me. I'm too smart for that. Brittany, you're indeed amazing. You saw through this rotten bastard with just one look. You're so smart, Brittany. HMPH. Rotten bastard. Your tricks won't work in front of Brittany. As the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's disciples praised Brittany, they looked at Dustin contemptuously. They had thought he was a decent guy, but he was a sly fox in hiding. Dustin took in a sharp breath and forced himself to stay calm. I'm repeating myself one last time. I'm uninterested in you and don't care who you are. Please don't flatter yourself here. Liar. Go on and continue with your lies. Do you think I will believe you? Brittany wrapped her arms around herself, looking like she knew it all. Chapter 857. Please leave if you don't believe me. Dustin's patience had run thin, and he drove him out. This woman's narcissism was beyond his tolerance. Still playing hard to get. You're so childish. Brittany scoffed, shaking her head. Fine. I'll play with you since you want to play. Hopefully, you won't regret it. Let's go. Brittany walked out while she spoke. HMPH, Brittany gave you a chance, but you didn't appreciate it. She's angry now, and it's too late to do anything. If you had any sense, you'd apologize to her immediately. She still might consider forgiving you. The Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples observed the situation as if watching a melodrama. They were expecting Dustin to be sobbing regretfully soon. However, the more they laughed, the more they sensed something was amiss. Dustin remained unusually calm. Even when Brittany had left the meeting room, he still hadn't shown any reaction. It was as if he didn't care. Hey, I'm really leaving. Brittany stopped by the door. She left a final warning, this is the best time to make me stay. If you miss this chance, you will regret it for life. Dustin remained stoic, as if he didn't hear her, and continued sipping his drink leisurely. All right, let's see how long you can keep up your act. Brittany clenched her teeth and exited the room without looking back. She had to admit that Dustin was good at his game. But sadly, he was up against her. His tricks were useless against her. Men should act like men, a simple fanboy. What was the point of acting? It was ridiculous. She was going to make Dustin beg her to come back today. It was about her dignity and pride as a goddess, after all. Brittany left. There's no use crying now. Serves you right. You won't have a chance to fawn over her now that you've made her angry. Did you think you could get her attention this way? That was a misjudgment on your part. If you're a real man, don't even think about begging us. The disciples gave Dustin their peace of mind before following Brittany out the door. Walking with pride and arrogance, they walked out as haughtily as they entered. It's all your fault, Dustin. You made my senior leave in anger. Nikki was anxious when she saw them go. What does it have to do with me? Your senior thinks she's the owner and flatters herself. Dustin shrugged. Although she has her misgivings, she's indeed gorgeous. It's normal for her to be cautious. When men frequently have dirty thoughts, Nikki explained. Other people may be interested in her, but not me. Dustin took another sip of his drink. I don't care. Get my senior back here, now. Nikki spared no further explanation and dragged Dustin out of the meeting room. She cried out, wait up, Brittany. Dustin has something to say to you. Brittany's lips curved up into a smile. It was as if she was expecting it. She stopped and turned around. She crossed her arms and lifted her chin slightly like a queen. Arrogantly, she said, what? Can't keep up your act any longer. And here I thought you were something. In the end, you were still defeated by my charm. Go ahead. I'd like to hear how you will beg me. Dustin pointed to the left. Then, he said seriously, you're going the wrong way. The exit is that way. Goodbye. Chapter 858. What? Dustin's words left the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples dumbfounded. They had expected Dustin to be begging them to stay and crying regretfully. But, goodbye. That shouldn't be a part of his script. Dustin, what are you doing? Are you provoking Brittany on purpose? Nikki glared at him. She had asked him to make her stay, not send her out. Why, you're too much. Brittany was livid after coming to her senses. Right now, she couldn't care less about maintaining her goddess-like demeanor. She took out her sword instantly, ready to kill. When has she ever been treated like this? It was humiliating. What are you guys doing? Just then, an authoritative voice rang out. Everyone saw a 30 to 40-year-old woman dressed like royalty walk in. An elderly woman accompanied her. The middle-aged woman had a curvy figure and exuded charm. Her gaze was sharp and full of pride. She appeared like someone who kept people at a distance. On the other hand, the elderly woman behind her looked gloomy. As she didn't smile, she looked stern. Madam Edith. Brittany's expression brightened when she saw her, and she immediately led the disciples up to greet her. The newcomer was none other than the head of the Jade Maiden Sisterhood, Edith Parker. What is going on here? Edith glanced around the room while looking displeased. She said, the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples should carry themselves with the maidens. What's with all the fighting and killing? This is unacceptable, Grace of, Madam Edith, it's this bastard's fault. He's trying to chase us out. Brittany pointed a finger at Dustin, playing the victim. Hey, don't twist the truth. You were the one trying to take our place. But I didn't let you, Dustin retorted impassively. HMPH. You had ulterior motives toward me and played hard to get. You got angry and chased us out once you found out I was not interested in you. You're despicable. Brittany yelled. Brittany, this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk this out. Nikki tried to mediate the situation. Nikki, how can you speak up for an outsider? Brittany frowned. I just think the environment is nice here. It's a suitable place for Madam Edith's training. There's no need to escalate things further. It's better to resolve things now. Nikki advised. HMPH. Sure. I won't pursue the matter, but he must apologize. Brittany pointed her sword at Dustin. What if I don't apologize? Would you leave again? I won't send you off then. You. Brittany seethed in anger. Enough. Edith raised a hand to stop their bickering. She declared coldly, I like this place. It's not bad. We'll settle down here. Madam Edith, there are a lot of disgusting men here. They're dirty and smelly. It'll be hard for us to stay here if we don't drive them out. Brittany added fuel to the fire. Brittany, this is Dustin's manor. It's not right to drive the owner out. If word gets out, it'll ruin our reputation, Nikki warned. Hey. Why do you keep speaking up for him? Brittany was upset. Forget about it. Let them stay here for now. We are important people, so we need someone to serve us anyway. Edith glanced at Dustin and said coldly, Hey, you there, prepare our rooms. We only want the best. Here, consider this a reward. As she spoke, she flicked a finger. A gold coin dropped at Dustin's feet. And with that, she led her people in without any care. HMPH. Consider yourself lucky. You got another chance to get close to me. But I'm warning you, you better not have inappropriate thoughts. Chapter 859. Brittany snorted and followed the group inside. What a bunch of lunatics. Dustin shook his head as he mumbled to himself. He finally realized where Brittany's confidence came from. How could the disciples be any better if they had such an arrogant leader? Well, my teacher has a cold personality. Please don't take it to heart. Brittany was feeling awkward. Forget about it. I'd rather not argue with women. Dustin waved his hand dismissively. He would have driven him out much earlier if it wasn't for Nikki. He was indebted to Nelson and could only repay him by helping his family. Thank God. Nikki breathed a sigh of relief before changing the subject. She asked, By the way, I want to ask you something. Since you're the boss here, have you ever heard of the Jade Maiden scripture? Jade Maiden scripture. What's that? Dustin's brows furrowed. The Jade Maiden scripture is the Jade Maiden sisterhood's long-lost treasure. Madam Edith hasn't been able to break through to the Grandmaster level because she's missing a crucial technique from the scripture. I heard it was recently found in the southern province, Millsburg. But I'm still not sure who has it. So I thought to ask if you heard of anything. Nikki briefly explained the situation. After their brief interaction, she unknowingly started to trust him. She hadn't even noticed it herself. The Jade Maiden scripture, was it? All right. I'll have someone check about it discreetly. I'll let you know immediately when there's news. Dustin nodded. Not bad. You're quite efficient. Nikki nodded in satisfaction. Don't worry. Once we find the Jade Maiden scripture, I'll speak to Madam Edith on your behalf and have her reward you handsomely. Even marrying Brittany won't be a problem when that time comes. Ha. Thanks. But keep her for yourselves. Dustin looked disgusted. Only an idiot would fall for Brittany. Dustin returned to his room once he completed the arrangements for the Jade Maiden Sisterhood disciples. He started healing his injuries. The poison from Septimortis still affected him, and he could only try to suppress its effects. Paul Hill's death was still a mystery. The murderer had disappeared without leaving any clues, and it was challenging to find a breakthrough. He had only 6 days left, and the Martial Arts Alliance members had their eyes on him. If he couldn't find the murderer, there would be no way to conclude this. Just as his mind was full of distressing thoughts, his phone rang. It was a call from Dahlia. Without even thinking, he rejected the call. However, in a few seconds, his phone rang again. After Dustin rejected the call, Dahlia would call again. This repeated a few times before Dustin couldn't take it any longer. He answered the call in annoyance. "What do you want?" he questioned harshly. "Dustin, I need to speak to you. Tonight at 8 p.m. I'm not leaving till you come." Dahlia's voice was hoarse. "Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have the energy to talk to you," Dustin refused immediately. "I'll kill myself if you don't come." Then, she hung up. Chapter 860. It was 8 p.m. Inside the Rose Cafe, Dahlia was seated by the window. She had both hands wrapped around her cup of coffee. Her mood was heavy as she watched the rain fall outside. She looked exhausted. Since last night, she had been in a trance and felt dispirited. All she could think of was Dustin and their memories. She had tried so hard to mend their relationship. But whatever she did, it seemed to pull them further apart. She slowly realized that Dustin seemed to care less about her now. He no longer put her first and considered her feelings either. She was terrified at the thought that they had turned into enemies, especially after the decisive look he gave her last night. Just then, Dahlia heard the sound of a bell hanging at the door. She turned her head instinctively and saw a familiar figure enter. It was none other than Dustin. "You're here." Dahlia's eyes lit up, and she appeared more animated as she stood up. "What did you call me here for?" Dustin took a seat stoically. "We haven't sat down and talked in a long time, have we?" Dahlia had mixed feelings. "About last night, let's clear up our misunderstandings. Will you even believe me?" "Why should I waste my time if you won't?" Dustin said impassively. "So you won't even talk to me anymore?" Dahlia frowned slightly. "What do you want me to say? I made myself clear yesterday. I'm not going to repeat myself." Dustin shook his head. "I just hope you'll tell me the truth and not hide anything from me," Dahlia responded. "Sincerely." "All right, you want the truth. Then I'll tell you everything from the start. First of all, Gavin is working together with Madame Alma. They were the ones responsible for your ambush. It was nothing more than a staged performance they arranged. Secondly, I investigated and found that Madame Alma is behind Regulus' chromatic state. They don't need the Panax route to cure him. All they're trying to do is to gain your trust and plot something sinister. Finally, I was sent to Azkaban, all thanks to Gavin. An influential figure got me released, not him. From the start, he's been a hypocrite sowing discord and causing trouble. He even had his men kill me, which resulted in the deaths of my men I consider brothers. This is everything that happened. Now, I've told you everything. The question is, do you believe me?" Dustin poured out all the grievances and countered her with a question. If Dahlia believed him, they could continue with the conversation. He found no reason to continue wasting his breath if she didn't. "Dustin, what physical proof do you have of Mr. Kirin being a hypocrite?" Dahlia inquired cautiously. "So, you still think I'm lying?" Dustin scoffed. "Since you don't believe me, what's the purpose of this conversation?" "It's not that I don't believe you. It's just that those are serious accusations. You can't just make empty claims." Dahlia started reasoning with him. Gavin was Dragonmarsh's major general. He came from an affluent family and was morally upright. It was hard for her to accept that he was a bad person. "Never mind, just forget I mentioned it." Dustin shook his head in disappointment. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Then, he stood up and left.